Got it.
There you
Okay. Well, thank you to those of you that are here. Before we start, would you please join me in a minute's silence as a mark of respect to reflect on the passing of Steve, our council clerk, please. Thank you very much for that. We'll start the meeting with apologies, and I've had one apology, and that's from Councillor Will Thomas. I'm not aware of any other apologies, so we'll record that one. Declarations of interest. We'll move on from that. Minutes of the meeting on the 23rd of January. That they're a true record of what went on. Happy with that?
Yep.
Item number 4, Newton Primary School. This was a matter that was deferred from the 23rd of January meeting. Councillor Thomas did give a little bit of background, but it was decided by the committee we wanted some more information. That's not been forthcoming. So if you're in agreement, we'll move it on to the next month's meeting, please.
Yep, that's fine.
Item number 5 is the Linden Church Trust Red Community Grant application. The application is for £15,000 spread over 3 years for the West Cross Youth Club. This was an idea that originally had been put forward by Rebecca. Do you want to discuss it in any way or go straight to a vote?
I'm happy to go straight to a vote, only to say that they've applied under our recurring grants procedure. So it's £5,000 a year for 3 years.
Yeah.
So it won't all come out of the current pot, if that makes sense.
Oh, no.
Presumably it will be starting from April the 1st, but that'll be the first year of the 3.
Oh yeah, there's no money there otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm in favour of it.
Yep.
Well, that's unanimous.
Oh, hang on.
And the next one is the where are we? Raw performance. Raw performance, a grant application. It's for £4,600. It's towards what he calls an active mumbles, which will offer free outdoor fitness, well-being and nutritional programs to help address obesity, diabetes, mental health issues. I have read the application. I have certain reservations. They are putting £400 towards it. So it's a £5,000 project. Do we know the company? Well, I'm not aware of it, but that doesn't mean a lot. And we're not sure as to where it's taking place. Now, with an event like this, if it was to take place in a park or on the green adjacent to the promenade, for example, you know, that's council land, and would they require approval to do that? And I would have thought they would. So possibly there could be a couple of questions we really want to clear up on. Now, if anyone has any information that's helpful towards the application, I'm all ears. Francesca.
Ian, not that I've touched base with Raw Performance. I am aware of them, that they've been doing, I think, in connection with Bay Fitness, which operates out of Mumbles, and I believe they've been offering sort of 3 sort of outdoor classes every Saturday morning. You sign up, I think there's, I don't know, say 40 places every week, and you sign up to it. But apart from that, which is not a huge amount of information, that's the limited amount of information I've got, but I know it does happen in Langland. So I think sometimes they're on the beach or car park or what have you. So, but it is based in Langland. The only thing I did note is that there's 2 different figures in the application. One says £5,000 and the other one says 4,006. Yeah.
I think that's come about, Francesca, because they're putting forward £400 of their money to make it 4,600.
But at the hang on, but it says on page 1 it does say amount of grant requested 5,000. So that's the amount they've requested. And then on
you're right, yeah.
On the 3rd page, what amount of funding? So I do understand, I think maybe they've got it muddled, but I think we need clarity. Is it the 4? I appreciate they put £400 towards it, but they have actually stated on that grant, on the 1st page, amount of grant requested 5,000, and then on page 3 it does say what amount of funding are you requesting from MCC, and that's 4,600. So I'm assuming it's 4,600 they're asking for, but you know, I think we would need confirmation of that.
Oh yeah, that's something we could clarify, Rebecca.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a bit odd that we asked that question twice. We've got question 7 and question 15 are basically the same thing. So perhaps we could just make a minor amendment to the form in future. I was just going to say, I think for me, you've outlined a lot of the things I was going to ask Ian, and I don't have any answers, I'm afraid. But the main question for me is the where, because as far as possible, I would like it that they were spread around so that there might be opportunities for as many of our residents as possible to take part without having to drive, just because that it can be a barrier. So I'd want to know kind of, and also sort of through the family fun days and things, we've worked in the past to try and like promote awareness of some of our outdoor spaces that perhaps people don't use as much. So like we've had things on Castleacre Green, for example, because people don't necessarily think to go there and use it as a green space, and parts of Fairwood Park are the same. So yeah, I'd be really interested in that, really, to know that there's like a spread, and whether they're perhaps using some open spaces that we're not maximising the use of. I think that would be really valuable to understand.
I think that's a valid comment, actually. As Francesca's pointed out, it would seem as if they do hold some of the events at Langland. Well, we wouldn't want them all to be at Langland. I'm sure you wouldn't be happy about that, and neither would I, actually. I think it's something that should be spread around the different wards where it's practicable. I believe it's for 26 weeks. To me, it seemed quite a bit of money, but I really don't know a great deal about it. He has, in the application, he sort of declared certain numbers of people that they've had in the past. You know, the idea is good. You know, he's providing it free, but somebody has to pay for it. And anyway, Carrie.
Yeah, I would imagine if they're offering sessions free, there would be no permission required from Swansea Council. I mean, as you say, you do see all sorts of groups of people who gather on the beach or wherever, you know, whether it's for some sort of, you know, fitness class or whatever. So I would have thought as they're free that there wouldn't be a problem with that. But I would want to set as a stipulation that they have to be in all 4 wards. I think we should make that, you know, a kind of expectation of the grant, because if they're just going to be held in Langham Bay, then as Rebecca said, that actually cuts out quite a large number of our residents.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say that they've not said it's only in Langham Bay. It's just that Francesca is aware it's been happening at Langham Bay, so we'll clarify that. So at 4 wards, it's free. And
Chair, sorry to interrupt.
do you think we should be looking for some form of accreditation for first aid? I know I sound a bit like a nanny here, but I'm just trying to look after our best interests. You know, if we're inviting this company, which we don't know anything about, or I certainly don't, I think it might be prudent to ask some questions on that front. Do you think? Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I don't want to cast any aspersions here, or I just have some questions that are just popping up into my head. Unfortunately, I hadn't had the chance to read through this properly. Otherwise, I probably would have gone away and done a little bit of research. I'm sure Raw Performance are an excellent company and have lots and lots and lots of credentials to the name, but the fact that they're offering something that says it's you know, outdoor fitness, great, tick, well-being, tick, nutritional programs to help address obesity, diabetes and mental health, that for me just tips this into the realm of health. And again, you know, I'd be perhaps wanting to know a little bit more about what their you know, their qualifications to do that are. Again, I'm, you know, if they're fully qualified, then absolutely wonderful. But you know, I'd just be mindful that, you know, we have to be careful when we're providing, you know, funding to things that we're not, you know, perhaps, you know, supporting something that isn't, you know, the first 2, as I said, definitely tick. But things around things like nutrition and diets and, you know, all that sort of stuff, I think that's a bit of a minefield myself. So yeah, and certainly in terms of sort of fitness and well-being sessions, I think this sounds like an excellent idea across there. I'm just I don't know, when it comes down to the sort of the public health sort of situation, perhaps I'm a little bit more cautious here.
Yeah, I reflect that too. I think we could also query the fact how long this company's been operating. If we're in agreement, before we have, go on, Carrie.
Yeah, I've just looked up their website, which seemed a useful thing to do.
Thanks.
And
Carrie.
there's quite a lot of information, obviously, about it. One of the guys is an ex-military. He currently works for the Military Preparation College. He's been shortlisted for the best teacher of the year by the Times Educational Supplement. So, I mean, he's obviously got quite a bit of training there. Another guy is a physical training instructor, also ex-army. So they do seem to be, you know, basically a couple of I mean, if he's a qualified teacher, then, you know,
yeah,
he's obviously done fairly decent.
Where my query is, Carrie, is around the nutritional and diet side of things, diabetes particularly, because we're touching into the realm of, is this generalized advice that can be found elsewhere, or are we going into medical and health advice, which isn't something that
Wouldn't imagine so.
No, I know we wouldn't imagine so, but I think we need to be sure That's, you know, if health advice is being given, it's the correct health advice, and if you know, and suitably qualified to do so, or accredited to do so, because as a council, we wouldn't want to be supporting someone that's not.
No. Yeah. Well,
They
thank you
seem
for
to
that.
be saying it's more ensure that people can access the help and support they need to make positive lifestyle changes.
Okay.
Support they need to focus on their health and well-being. So I don't think they're kind of offering some sort of magic cure. I think they're just, it sounds like they're just sort of offering advice on how to
Yeah, it'd be
best.
good if they could. Okay, thank you for that, Carrie. Francesca.
Yeah, Ian, so do you know what, I know Carrie's always just mentioned it, and my mind, I think it's just because I've just been addled today. I did forget to mention the vital part is that a lot of them are ex-military. So I think a lot of them did set a lot of the sort of CIC companies up in order to help with, you know, sort of stress related. So I know that there is a lot of them at the moment that are working with the health boards. So that, you know, if anyone is suffering with depression or anything like that, instead of maybe, you know, prescribing the medication, they are being passed on to companies like this to try and help that well-being. So before sort of getting them on medication, it's more of sort of a bit of rehabilitation, I suppose, you know, getting them in, out walking or whatever that is, and a lot of sort of positive, I suppose positivity more than anything, sort of trying to incorporate that into their lifestyle. But I do think it is relevant that we do ask. I'm like I say, fitness wise, I'm pretty sure they've got all the qualifications going, and given they were ex Welsh Guards, puts them in good stead. But nonetheless, as Phil said, if we are to support it, let's just make sure we're ticking all the boxes.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Rebecca.
Yeah, my moment has come and gone a bit really, but it was just a point of information on what Carrie was saying about they don't necessarily need permission from the council. If they're doing stuff in parks, then it's not so much the permissions, it's the booking. So like even the free family stuff that we do over the school holidays, we have to book it in. Because, you know, imagine if they were running a session and then we rocked up with 100 kids, like, you know, that sort of thing could happen. And as part of that booking, we have to do fire risk assessment, first aid risk assessment, like all of those things. So I'm sure they've got it all, you know, it's like our one now, it's just, we just review last year's and it's mostly the same and off it goes, you know, it's not a big deal. But I think that would also help our due diligence is if they were making bookings like that, because they'd have all of that paperwork to just kind of send to us and we could have a look at it as well. So it would be worth checking that they've touched base with parks.
Well, that's good.
I've made a note across 5 counties, Bridgend, Caerphilly, Port Talbot. So this must be something they've done already in other local authorities. So yeah, they should know what the procedure is. Yeah.
Well, I think if you're in agreement, we'll get the either Rosie or the RFO to contact them with some of our questions, and then we'll defer it then to the next meeting. I've made a note of that I'll put in the minutes, and I'll make sure the RFO has that promptly, so it gives them time to reflect on it, and raw performance to get back to us. So all happy with that? But generally, we're really quite in favour. But let's have a little bit more information.
As I said, Ian, I think welfare, well-being, fitness, health is great. But I think when we start dancing into the realms of things like nutrition and diabetes, that's where I start getting a little bit antsy.
There's a little bit of a crossover there. Isn't there, really? And the same with the mental health. You know, one's got to be not too judgmental on some of these issues, and you know, be a little bit cautious as how they're approached. But I'm sure these are professional chaps, and they're familiar with it. But anyway, it's good that we're looking into this.
Indeed.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Now the next. Right. The next one is item number 7, and it's the Mumbles Traders annual grant. And I highlighted it as a discussion on agreement to be established with the Mumbles Traders regarding the agreed annual funding of events to be delivered by Mumbles Traders. Now, in the when we set the budget, there was an allocation of £8,500 for the events to be put on by the Mumbles Traders and EP, whatever it is, Paul Whitaker. So, Phil.
Yes, Paul got in touch with me very briefly, obviously last week after we just had the sad news about Steve, and obviously I dropped an email in response in which I think I copied you into there. Obviously we've got a month or two before the new financial year to be able to sit down with Mumbles Traders and work out a suitable service level agreement, I think is the way to call it, what to call it there. And he's aware of the fact that that's that pot is there for the use.
Yes. How did Paul react to the sum of money, the figure?
I think he was, I know Paul from, he can always do more with more.
I know him all right.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I mean, certainly, he was pleased to hear that, it wouldn't necessarily be a case of having to fill in the same paperwork again and again and again throughout the year.
Yeah. Oh no, there are definitely advantages in this. Carrie?
I suppose what would be useful is if we sort of, I suppose pass on to do the finer details to the Culture Committee, but ask that they report back to us on how the money has been used and what events it's supporting, so that we have a track of what the money's being used for, but we leave the actual sort of organising of the events and things to be done through Paul and the Culture Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm, as I said in my email, Ian, I'm quite happy, to lead or co-work this with you as a joint venture between the committees, if you'd prefer. Obviously, to set the service level agreements, and then obviously to monitor it throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can I jump in, Ian, as well, and Phil? If we can sort of dovetail in with you guys. Obviously, from a Swansea City Council's point of view, obviously we are working with businesses in the area, so I think it would complement the roles nicely. And I think that's the same for Will and Angela. So what we don't want to be doing is almost doubling up on the workload, if that makes sense. So I think we can sort of share ideas and work together if you're both happy with that.
More than happy. Let's set up a separate meeting. Obviously, slightly more sensitive, so we might not, need to do that publicly. But once we have a sort of a contractual arrangement agreed, we can present that to Paul and see how it works. Yes. Sorry, I'm sorry,
I wasn't expecting you to do that, Phil.
I turned into Culture Committee head all of a sudden.
It was just
Apologies,
a quick question to ask whether has the discussion so far been about the 8,500 being solely to use for events? Because I know when we discussed this, I forget in which forum, but Will was around. It may have been this committee actually. And he was sort of saying, he would want to work with the Mumbles Traders a bit more holistically, because there's also kind of infrastructure improvements that they're, would benefit from, etc. However, 8,500 isn't going to go that far in that respect. So is this just the events pot?
And realistically speaking, when we looked at well, the request really that had come in from Paul, and looked at the what was being proposed as Mumbles Traders, the budget was significantly more. Obviously, during our budget setting, we had to be realistic, and that means that we're going to have to be far more targeted with how that money gets spent across the events that were suggested by them. And then, of course, you know, as the year progresses, we can see whether or not there is any movement, and how those things go for good or ill indeed. You know.
Mhm. Okay, Carrie?
Yeah, I think it would be difficult to stretch it sort of beyond what we'd sort of assumed it was for. I mean, the way we came up with the 8,500 figure is basically look through what grants he'd requested this year for, I think, 4 events, and say, right, that's how much we can allocate. Because obviously there's an element of us relying on Paul and Mumbles Traders to some extent to put on events, and us giving them the grant is our way of making sure that those events take place, and then we can input into them and support them. So if that money was sort of deflected into something else, then those events wouldn't happen, and or it would be down to us to scrabble around in Phil's budget to find extra money to run them.
Mhm. Right. Well, I think.
Yeah,
Sorry?
if we can have a meeting perhaps first full week of March. I mean, it's usually the first week of the month that goes quite well. I don't have our next CTC until the 5th of March. But if we can, you know, interested parties can be involved in just
The 1st of March. The 5th
sorry?
is a Sunday.
Sorry, must be the
1st.
sorry, I can't recall off the top of my head now.
No, it's the 1st of March, I think. So
First,
it's the week.
Oh, I'll tell you now.
first, second, third, fourth.
The 1st of March is a Wednesday.
Yeah, they're usually
Yeah.
Wednesdays, aren't they?
Yeah,
So, yeah, it would be, yeah.
Because-
I mean, I don't
Yeah,
have.
because there were only 28 days in the
Yeah.
month, so we ran out
yeah,
So-
of
first of Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesdays.
Yeah, so the first full week of March is looking fairly good for me at the moment in terms of
Is this a meeting that you would
We-
like Paul to be there, or?
that's right. Well, again, perhaps we can sit around, have a look at what sort of service level agreement would be you know, acceptable to ourselves, and we can invite Paul along.
You would like to invite him to that meeting? Before
Indeed.
we do the service level
No,
agreement?
we do the service level agreement. I mean,
Yeah. And then have a
I'm ass-
meeting and discuss that
that's
with
right.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be the best way, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Paul can probably kind of pull one off the shelf from previous. I think there's Mumbles Traders have previously had SLAs with us. So I'm
You mean
sure
our
they're
Paul,
not
right,
there.
Carrie?
Hmm?
Do you mean our Paul now?
The
Yeah,
RFO.
our Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pull one
our
off
Paul
the
as
shelf.
in Paul Bynon.
Yes.
Well, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Too many Pauls, yes.
So it's a case
Yes,
of having
Paul
a look at
Bynon
that.
should have a copy of a previously used SLA that you would probably, at least as a starting point,
Lovely.
to say you're having to build it from scratch.
In that case, I
Okay.
will email.
Yeah,
Right. So the idea then on the first week in March, which is a Wednesday, we'll have a meeting to discuss the service level agreement, but I'll put this in a
If it's the
in an
Wednesday,
email to Paul,
yeah.
if he can look at that. There's probably some skeleton of one somewhere that would give us a framework to work from. Now, who wants to be on that meeting?
Well,
I'd be interested, Chair.
Phil, Francesca,
yeah.
myself.
I would have thought probably you know, Will and perhaps Andrew, if they're free, I don't know what their diaries are like, but
Yeah.
just so that we don't overlap with anything.
I'll ask Rob if he wants to weigh in as vice chair as well.
Yes, yeah, no problem. Anyway, I've got a note of that. And then in the interim period, you can think about your own personal things you might like to see on a service level agreement. It always scares the pants off me when it comes to service level agreements, because we were trying for, I can't tell you how many years to get one with City. So, and it never materialized.
We did,
Anyway.
we did get it.
I
It's
beg
signed.
pardon?
We did get it, it's even signed.
Yes, I've just been facetious.
Take a few
Really.
years.
Yeah, not like me, I know. Okay, well, I think that's it.
Jolly good. That's what I
Yeah,
like,
that's it.
that short meeting.
Well, thank you all very much for making the effort, and thank you especially again, Carrie, for opening up the office and doing all that hard work. It saved
I'm
me
being
having to
lonely
do it,
here with
because I
nobody,
haven't got the
nobody
keys, you
to keep me
see, and
company.
there was a bit of a conflict of interest flying around, but
Yeah,
anyway,
not to
Right.
worry.
Thanks,
was
Carrie.
fine.
Appreciated.
thank
Cheers,
you all
Ian.
very much.
Thanks
Carol.
everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.